Grr, arg.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mixtape Podcast, a podcast where we review movies from a screenwriter perspective, but we also love the movies we review. I will be your host. My name is Dean Stark, and I am joined by my co-host, Marcelina Stroza. And this week, we have a 90s classic for you. We have Fear, released in 1996, directed by James Foley and written by Christopher Crowe. If you have not seen this movie, stop this podcast right now and go and watch it because it is a classic. So we hope that you've seen this movie, and we hope you enjoy our deconstruction of this amazing movie. So if you don't know what this movie is, it's about this. When Nicole meets charming David, he was everything, but she soon sees that David has a dark side. So the opening scene, we're introduced to Nicole, which is Reese Witherspoon, looking like a fetus. She's a high school student, and then we're introduced to her dad. Now, this was interesting. The introduction to her dad. He's running because they live by the water, and there's like forest surrounding it. He's a runner. He's introduced as a runner, but they never bring that back because usually when a character is introduced into a story and they've got some sort of an ability, skill, something that they've worked hard at, it's a setup for something that's going to happen later. But they never really paid off his running. It was just like a nothing burger unless it was in the script and they took it out. I don't know. We're introduced to her dad and he's running and he gets back to the house and she's going to school. She's wearing like this short dress and he's like, maybe you shouldn't be wearing that. And she's like, oh my God, Dad, like, get with the times, like typical 16-year-old teenager. She's getting snarky with him. And he's like, okay, just like go to school. Like he's not overbearing. He doesn't enforce rules. He kind of says what he needs to say. And if she kind of snaps back at him, he's like, all right, fine. Like he doesn't want to cause issues. He's not a dickhead or anything. And he's trying to be a good dad. We meet his wife, which is Nicole's stepmom, and her son, which is Nicole's stepbrother. The introduction of Nicole didn't really say anything about her character other than she's 16 and going to school. I thought we could have had a little bit more about who she was as a character. Kind of same with the dad, but it was just basically a basic introduction of everything. So what did you think? And what do you think about the running thing? Because I felt like the running thing was going to come back and it never came back.
I think the running thing means a lot more than just him running on the surface. I think Nicole's father has a problem. I think that he continuously runs away from his responsibilities. I think that he continuously runs away from his family, right? And he runs away from actually being a father to Nicole and being a father to his son. He's physically there, but he's not really there. I think the most important thing to him early on in the film was work. When you really think about it. So when you look at his running, I think that says a lot about his character without saying anything at all. Oh. You just have to really think about it.
Like a metaphor.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it.
That's what I was looking for.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. So the running is a metaphor for his behavior and how he approaches life, and specifically how he approaches being a parent.
Okay. Yep. I'll take that. I like that. So Nicole goes to school and her friend Margo, we meet her friend Margo, who's played by Alyssa Milano, and their friend Gary, and they decide to cut class. And Nicole's not really okay about it, but she's like, okay, like she's like yes man. She just goes along with whatever Margo says. She's kind of set up that way. She's a goody two shoes. She's like a Pollyanna kind of chick. And they go to this really cool cafe with the music. There's music. There's pool tables. Where Nicole spots David for the first time. He's playing pool. David is played by Mark Wahlberg. And you can tell she thinks he's hot. She keeps kind of looking up at him. And he spots her. He keeps looking at her, but he plays it real cool. Like he doesn't approach her. He just looks at her and then continues playing pool. He's a cool character. Anyway, that was scene 2, and that was the meeting, kind of the eye sexing of Nicole and David. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, I thought it was a very, very cool scene, but I really, really liked the scene because when they step into the bar or the cafe, like Dean said, it's such a vibe. Like the music, people are smoking, the lighting in the scene is particularly great and eye-popping, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you said just a couple seconds ago that you feel that Nicole doesn't have a lot as a character to tell us who she is or what she believes in.
Mm.
I think the way that she dresses tells us everything that we need to know about this woman or this young woman
Mm.
in the case of the character.
Mm.
She dresses very conservatively, right?
Yes. Yes.
She dresses like
Like a girl that doesn't want to be gawked at.
yes, like a girl that doesn't want to be gawked at. But you know what? But do you know what that does with someone that looks like her?
It makes her even hotter.
That makes her even hotter.
Yeah, I know.
So if you look at it like that, she's like a piece of meat
Yeah.
on a hook.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mark Wahlberg in this movie is the shark.
Yes.
I did appreciate the sexing with the eyes. I thought that was cool, but early on in this film, listen, this may be an indictment on the screenplay writer, but I had to look beneath beneath his writing to kind of formulate my own ideas about what he wanted the audience to feel.
Mm.
And I honestly don't think that as a screenplay writer, I don't think that that's what you're supposed to do. Like I really think that you're supposed to paint a picture for the audience, and the screenplay writer, rightly or wrongly, kind of didn't do that at all. I am making all these inferences because I'm a writer.
Mm.
But if I'm anybody watching this film, what do I know about Nicole's father? What do I know about Nicole? I don't know anything about them.
Correct. Yeah.
And I'm like, that, like, as a screenplay writer, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. I agree with you. We don't know anything about these characters. So Margo invites Nicole to a party tonight, but she says she's going out with her dad. She's going to a concert. She can't go. And then there's a really nice conversation between Nicole and her dad. And this is where it sets up the bond because they're snarky with each other, but they laugh it off. And they've got a really, really, really close relationship. You know, she doesn't want to go to the concert. And he's like, oh, come on. And she's like, oh, okay. Like there's no bickering. He doesn't force anything on her. He's not controlling. He's not abusive. He's trying. Like he's really trying. So they get home and it turns out the dad gets a call from work and he has to cancel the plans. Like he can't go. So nobody can go. And so Nicole calls Margo and says she's going to come to the party. And this is really the whole thing because I feel like if the dad didn't have to go to work, none of this movie would happen because it's when Nicole goes to the party that the movie really starts moving in the direction we need it to move in.
Yeah. Would you say that the party is the inciting incident?
Yes. Yes, I would.
Listen, I really love the scene in the car between Nicole and her dad because, like Dean said, that shows that they have a close bond. That shows that he is a caring father to a point. But again, I don't think that the writer did enough in these characters' introductions to make us really care about them. I think that the writer expected the audience. I think that the writer expected the audience to care about the situation more than character development and actually giving us a good picture of who these characters are supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. So Nicole and Margo show up at a fucking shit-kicking 90s party. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, that takes me back. That reminds me of the parties. Oh, fuck, the 90s parties, man. They just don't do it. They don't do it justice these days. Anyway, I was reminiscing, nostalgic about the fucking party. Margo goes off. She sees this, like, biker guy that is, like, so fucking gross.
Yeah. By the way, when I was thinking about what these girls were doing in this movie, I go, look, and I only think this because I'm an adult. Okay, now I'm like, these girls are jailbait. Do they know what they're fucking doing? Like, what the hell are they doing?
Well, we kind of find out a little bit more about Margot's character and why she does the things that she kind of does.
We do.
I understand. So she goes to dance with this biker. She's very different to Nicole. She's very confident. She's very outgoing. And Nicole is kind of not. So Nicole stands alone when David steps up, and he's cute and he's cool and he's not pushy. They're just having a really, really light-hearted conversation. She's like, why aren't you dancing? And he's like, nobody's asked me to dance. He doesn't actually come out and say, "Do you want to dance with me?" He doesn't even hit on her. He's very laid back and just like, I don't know, cool as a cucumber. So a fight ends up
You know what?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what? He's chill.
He's chill as fuck. He's chill as fuck, and that's kind of what allures Nicole. It's like, "Oh, he's not trying to hit on me." Like, "Okay, cool, that's different." A fight breaks out, and he basically puts his arm around her very protectively and leads her out, and they get to the roof, and he helps her down very gentlemanly like. And then they're in his car, and they pull up kind of in a park by a lake, and they have a conversation about their lives. And Nicole's living with her dad, and she explains the situation, and David basically tells the story about how he's got these parents that have been married for like 50 years. The only arguments they have are between like tea and coffee. He wants that. That's what he wants. That's all he's been brought up with. And he's very sweet, and he listens, and he's very patient. Again, he's not pushy at all. He doesn't push anything on her. And then she says she has a curfew at midnight, and he looks at her clock. It was an old school, like analog clock, and he winds her watch back like 30 to 40 minutes, which means like, oh, she's got more time. But it's the first instance where you go, he doesn't really respect authority. That might be a problem, but not a lot. It's not too much. It's just, no, it's like, oh, okay. Like it could come off as like, oh, he's really sweet. He just wants to spend more time with her. Or fuck her parents. I don't care what her parents say. I want to spend time with her. So it could go either way. And then he kisses her, and then she pulls away because she doesn't want to have sex. She's never had sex. She's 16 years old. She's not ready. And he understands. He goes, "I totally understand, and I respect you for it." Like everything he's saying is like everything that like a 16-year-old girl wants to hear.
I love that scene between Nicole and Mark Wahlberg's character because it's so quiet. I do to mention that point about when Nicole says that she has a curfew, and when Mark Wahlberg's character winds back her analog wristwatch. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty standard move, but that's a nice way from a writer's aspect to sort of indicate that Mark doesn't care about where she has to be at a point, because he had just said previously that he likes that she respects herself. But if he really likes that she respects herself, then he would have respected her need to get out of there.
Yeah, I know.
When she needed to.
Yeah, I know.
So I like that small moment indicates what's going to happen later with Mark Wahlberg's character.
So they go out on a few dates, and David wants to meet Nicole's dad. So he does. And he turns up, and then he turns it on, and he's polite, and he basically presents himself as perfect as he can possibly be. He's lighthearted. He says all the right things. He even helps Nicole's stepmom with the gardening. And then he goes in to see the dad. The dad's working in the office, and he goes, "Excuse me, do you have somewhere I can wash my hands?" Because he's been doing the gardening. And the dad goes, yeah, in the bathroom there. So he washes his hands, and he comes out, and then David yells to Nicole, "Get me a Coke." And as soon as he does that, the dad shoots him a look. And you can tell what the dad's thinking. That's a red flag. And it is a red flag. He didn't say please. He didn't say, hey, like he just yelled across the fucking house, "Get me a Coke." And even I would have been like, okay, that's a bit weird. And then Margo comes in. Margo's an interesting character. I love Alyssa Milano, but Margo's an interesting character. She's wearing this short skirt, and she bends over in front of Margo's dad like a tramp. And she's just saying, like all this like weird, sexy, inappropriate stuff. And David is smiling at the dad, being really uncomfortable and not knowing what to do. And the dad's just staring at Margo's butt, not knowing what to do. And it's in the way that David is smiling that you go, okay, maybe there's something wrong with this. It's just a little bit, but maybe something's wrong with this guy. So Nicole's dad says to, have her home by midnight. And before David leaves the room, he turns the analog clock back half an hour again, so he has more time. So this scene really sets the tone for who David's going to become, because in relationships, when people start dating people like David, because David is real, right? And so is fucking Nicole. It escalates slowly. It's little things at first that that you kind of go, oh, okay, that's a red flag, but no, I really like him. Like it's just I'm just making up in my head until it gets to a really bad place. So the way that the guy has written it is actually really accurate to what kind of narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, obsessive people like how they do it. It's really, really slow because they need to gain your trust. And once they do it, then it escalates because then it's like they can do whatever they want because you've got their trust and adoration. And it's really, really sick. It's really, but it's true. I know people that have gone through this and it's really, really sick. So thoughts on the scene?
Yeah, just one quick thought on Alyssa Milano's character.
Mhm.
She's a hoochie mama. Like she must like older men because that's the only reason that she would have done that. She's a device to show the audience that there's not something quite right with David, but also, like Dean said, David does these subtle things to sort of hint to the audience that something isn't right here because who the hell yells halfway across the house to somebody who he's just started to date to get him a Coke? Who fucking does that? But also I love that the writer has put in these qualities to David to show us what a narcissistic individual does, like Dean said, because it's really, really good story plotting. Look, I wasn't happy with the way that the writer handled the beginning of the story, but I like the way that he's chosen to show us the continuous cracks in David's armor.
So the next scene, Nicole and David, they go to the carnival and they're all kissy kissy and they're all loved up. And then there's the iconic roller coaster scene, which I'm not going to explain what it is. If you haven't seen it, you fucking watch the scene. I'm not going to say what it is. It's iconic.
I love this song. You know why I love this song?
Oh, the Buffy song. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly why I love this song.
Yeah. It's okay. So let me tell for people that go, what the fuck are they talking about? Okay, so the song when they're at the carnival and on the roller coaster, there's a song called "Wild Horses" by the Sundays, and that song is iconic with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show. So
I mean, yeah, no, but also it's a great scene, but it's really uncommon. It's really sexual, but it's to make a point, and it's a really
make a point.
Well done scene, and it's done really tastefully. Because as a writer, when you write something, you want to convey an emotion to the audience, whether it's hate, love, or hate, whatever it is, you want to convey a reaction. And I think, as an audience member of this movie, in that specific scene, the writer achieved what he wanted to achieve. He wanted to elicit a reaction from me. It wasn't exactly the reaction that he wanted to do, that he wanted to get, but it was a reaction nonetheless.
I think he used the Volt roller coaster as a metaphor of the roller coaster of their relationship. So I like the fact that he used that device. I felt sorry for Reese Witherspoon and Mark Wahlberg because, for those who don't know it, if you see a scene in the movie where actors on a roller coaster, they have to ride it about 50 times. I'm not even exaggerating. It's like an all night, all day thing. So I felt really bad for them. But it's a good scene.
Yeah, I mean, to get the coverage, like, oh my god, it's like
I feel bad for them.
That must be nightmare.
I know. Anyway, Nicole's dad leaves for work, and the stepmom goes with them, leaving Nicole, who's 16, and her brother 10 alone for a few days. Now, listen. The dad trusts Nicole because Nicole, like we said before, she's conservative, she's trustworthy, but a 16-year-old is a 16-year-old. You don't leave them by themselves. I don't care how trustworthy you think they are. They're 16. They're not going to be that trustworthy. What does she do? As soon as he drives off, she fucking calls David to come over and tells him the security code to unlock the front door. And then he comes over. She's sleeping, and they have sex, but it's filmed really tastefully. Like, you don't see anything, but I like the way that it's filmed, not like today where you fucking see everything. But yeah, it was a nice thing because we had to get there. We had to get there, and we got there.
It achieves what the writer wanted to do. Look, if you're gonna do a scene like this in the other way, you have to do it for a reason. And you sort of have to justify it. But for what this movie is, and for the age that Nicole is, I really liked it with it. They did it because it could have gone the other way,
Yep.
and I think that that would have turned the audience off.
Yep.
And this movie isn't that.
Correct.
If this movie was presented as that, fine.
Mm.
If this movie was 13, then it would have been the other way.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
But this movie is not 13. This movie is this movie.
Yeah.
So I like the tastefulness of that moment and the directing choice by the director to get the shots that he got.
Yes, I agree. This is when the film kind of turns. David shows up to pick Nicole up from school. When he sees her hugging her male friend Gary goodbye, Gary's already been set up as she's just a friend. David jumps out of his car and starts beating the shit out of Gary. Like, he's on the ground, Gary's on the ground, and David just keeps kicking him. Nicole tries to intervene. He pushes Nicole off to the ground, and he's just like beating the shit out of this guy. And she's crying, and she tells him to go away. And he doesn't know what he's done wrong, and that's the scariest thing. He's like, what are you talking about? What are you? I didn't do anything wrong. And she's like, he's just totally like, it's the first time you see, something's wrong. But the thing is, the fact that they've already had sex sets up the fact that she trusts him implicitly. And this is the problem. So, yeah, the film turns from here on out. So what do you think?
I don't necessarily know if I like that choice.
Mm.
I would have rather had David be a little bit more manipulative to Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
Like him lashing out and beating up that kid right in the middle of everyone. I thought that was a bit much and a bit dramatic.
Yep.
I would have taken it down a more subtle path
Mm-hmm.
and a more psychological, I want to control you sort of deal.
Mm-hmm.
That scene did not work for me at all.
Like, it was too out of the gates. It was too like, whoa,
Yeah,
where'd this come from?
No, yeah. Like if I was gonna do that, I would have had several scenes where I would have shown David building that up.
Right.
And then I would have had him pop it. But to have him pop it right off the gate like that, I didn't like that choice.
Okay.
By the right.
I feel you with that. David follows, like, the next day, David goes into this Nicole's school and follows her down the school hallway. And Nicole is talking to her friend Gary, and she's confused. She goes, I don't know what I'm going to do about David. Like, and it's confusing. It's like, was this a one-off? Is he like that? I don't know him to be like that. So later on, she goes,
Also,
yeah.
Well, how long do you think the relationship was before this? Like,
I don't know. There's no time frame. A couple of months.
That's okay. A couple of months. That's a question that I had throughout the course of this movie. I'm like, how long have they been together, and what's the timeline here? Because I was like, if this is a couple days, there's a problem. If this is a couple weeks, there's still a problem. So I needed like a timeline that would have worked a little bit better for me. Did you have that problem, or was that just me?
No, I didn't have that problem. Because I just always assumed it was maybe a month or two, maybe. No longer than that. I don't think so. So Nicole goes to her locker, and there's a note that falls out from David. It says, I'm sorry, meet me here at this address. She doesn't show up. He sits there waiting for her. And then we see where David lives. He goes home, and he's basically squatting at his friend's house. And on his wall, he's got photos of him and Nicole all over his wall like a fucking shrine. And he's depressed and that she won't talk to him. But this is what I find strange. Next to the photos is a photo of a mugshot of him. I don't know why he has a mugshot of himself on the wall. I mean, it's obviously a device to show that he's been in jail, but when you're in jail and you have a mugshot, like, how do you get the mugshot? Do you just ask, like, can I have this? Like, and why would he have it on the wall? I understand why they did that, but I feel like they could have done better. They
could have done a lot better with David as a character. They could have done a lot better. But
yep, I agree. I agree.
But but the reason that I think they have it on the wall is to sort of illustrate to the audience that he's actually proud of the time that they got arrested.
Right. That's what I thought.
That he actually views it as a badge of honor.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's a problem, folks.
Yeah. I would say that that's a problem, yes. Yes. So Nicole's okay. So when David pushed Nicole down, she got a bruise on her eye. Now Nicole confides in her stepmom about the incident, and her dad comes in to her room and basically finds an empty condom wrapper. Doesn't show that he finds it, kind of just puts it in his pocket. And basically, he gets really angry. He lays down the law saying, you know, I want to know every move you make. I want to know where you are. I want to know who you're with. And she just says you're being ridiculous because he's never been like that. He's always trusted her and let her do whatever she wants to do. So she doesn't understand where the hell this is coming from. And then he says to her, how'd you get the black eye? Did David give it to you? And Nicole's like, look, I told you where I got it, but it's like it's obvious. He knows, and we know it was David when David pushed her. And she says it's from gym class, blah blah blah. So she also says that David is her business, not his, and maybe we'll get past it, maybe we won't. So even after the incident, she's still considering taking him back, which is again he has her trust. He has her love. You know, it's like, well, I don't want to lose him because of one mistake that he made. And that's the problem with women that stay in those relationships. They think it's a one-time thing. The guys apologize, they go back, and it's not a one-time thing. So, I mean, it's really a fucking cautionary tale. So anyway, David ends up sending her flowers. She throws them out. And then later on, she opens the letter and it's photos of them together, like kissing, like in a photo booth, and she starts smiling. So that's really all it took to get her to come back. Like, he beat the shit out of her friend. He apologized. It won't happen again. Sends her flowers and everything's okay. That's scary. That's scary.
Yeah. Listen, but I think that this is not said in the movie. Maybe it should have been. I think that she's been very sheltered.
Yeah.
I think that she has this belief she has this image of herself, which is what I said earlier. It's this sort of down to earth, Southern Belle kind of look to her, especially with the dress that she wears in the opening.
Mm.
So she's very naive. She's in high school, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
A girl with experience in high school would see the way that David is acting and go, "This is a fucking bad idea. Like, I need to get the fuck away from this guy. This guy's a loose cannon. I need to distance myself." But because she is such a goody two shoes, because she is so green, wonderfully, lovely, and bubbly, she doesn't know any better. So
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah. So this really struck me. Nicole is having a conversation with Margo. They're at Margo's house. When Margo says, because she's telling Margo the story, and Margo says, sometimes when they hit you, it's just their way of saying they love you. And that's all you need to know about Margo, why Margo is the way that she is. That's all you need to know by that dialogue. And you just go, what the fuck?
Yeah. I was when Margo said that to Nicole, I stood up and applauded. I said, "You know what, screenplay writer, I'll give you a gold star because you just did something amazing. You said everything you need to know about one character in one line of dialogue.
Yep.
So perfect, guys.
Perfect.
As writers, when we do that, we take a lap around our house or wherever the fuck we are because we go, I just did my job and I did it in one moment. So good.
It's so good. So David shows up to Margot's house and basically pulls Nicole aside, apologizes, says, I was only trying to protect you. I thought it was some random guy with his paws all over you. You know, I love you. I didn't realize it was Gary. It'll never happen again, I promise. And you can see she forgives him. The next day, they're at Nicole's house and they're playing in the pool. When her dad gets home and he sees David, as soon as he sees David, you can see on his face, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is he doing here? And he even asks his wife, what the hell is he doing here? And the wife is like, oh, you know, they made up. Everything's fine. I'm like, what the fuck?
Also,
yeah.
Also, I need to ask you a question. What do you think about Amy Brenneman's role in this movie? Because I'm a big fan of Amy Brenneman, but I think that her role in this movie is was kind of thankless, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Her role in this movie was she was a piece of furniture that talked. She had no substance. She was thin, character-wise. But she's a great actress. There was no
Yes.
need for her.
They could have done this movie without her.
100%. Yeah, they didn't. She
Yeah.
brought nothing to it, which is a shame.
Yeah. She was a piece of furniture. So I just wanted you to confirm that because I'm like,
Yeah.
she's a great actress. Why aren't they giving her more shit to do? And it's just their fault they didn't do that.
Yeah. So anyway, David sees her dad pissed off, staring at them. And then he starts kissing Nicole's forehead, looking directly at the dad, and it's creepy as shit. It's fucking creepy as shit. Anyway, that's that scene.
Yeah, it's very, very uncomfortable. It is extremely, extremely uncomfortable, and I think that the director elicited the response that he wanted the audience to have without having to say anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure, William Peterson, who plays Nicole's dad, said that line to Amy's character, Amy Brenneman's character. But even without that, if you would have just had William Peterson walk in and see David, and then have David plant the kiss, and then look over, that would have worked too.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't need her.
No, yeah. It's fine.
Her dad, now look, this is the screenwriter could have done better with this. Her dad wants to find out about who the fuck is this guy. So, and this is before fucking Facebook. You can't just stalk someone, right? You have to have fucking a private investigator and all this shit. So he finds out that David lied about his family. He was in foster care all his life until he went into an institution, and then he got kicked out, and then no one knows what happened to him. But as we know before, he's been in jail. So if her dad could find out all about that, surely he would have found out by whoever the private investigator is that he hired that David's been in jail. Surely. Yes? No? Maybe?
Yeah. That if you choose to do an investigation with a private investigator, they will find everything about the individual that you want to know about.
Yeah, exactly.
And because it's their job, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that he didn't find out that David was in jail was like, what? Writer, wake up.
Yeah.
You need to fix this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this next scene, interesting. Nicole's dad confronts David and tells him to stop seeing his daughter. I understand why that happened, because that actually pushes us into the third act. But on what planet does that work? On what planet did her dad think that he was just going to go, oh, okay, cool, I just won't see it? Honestly, I was just ridiculous.
Nicole's dad, like you said earlier on in the episode here, he does the best that he can, but I don't think that he's the best at being a dad.
Yeah.
And he's never dealt with a situation like this with her.
True.
So I think that he's just trying to do the best he can.
Yes.
And I don't think that he's fully understood what kind of person his daughter's dating.
True.
And that's why he does that.
That's true.
This also, like Dean just said, pushes us into the third act, but I think it's a reasonable act by somebody who doesn't exactly know how to quite be a father to a kid who has never gotten in trouble before in their lives.
Because what ensues is basically David saying, I know everything about you. I know that, you're not a good husband. You're not a good father. I know your work's shit. I know all this shit. I know all this shit about you. Basically, don't fuck with me because I know fucking all this shit about you. And from what Nicole has told him. And her dad basically says, stay away from her. And then when her dad drives off, David stands there and he starts punching himself in the chest quite violently. And at this point, you're like, what? You see why he did that? But he's turning from obsessive to violent obsessive. And it just gets kind of worse from here.
Yeah, look, David punching himself in the chest was completely unnecessary. I would have done that, but I would have done that with a look. That's it. No punching in the chest. Just have Mark Wahlberg watch the car go away and do a slight pushing on his face.
But you needed that for the next scene. You needed the bruises.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's right. So that's why I did. That's why I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Look, guys. I love this movie, but today's the first time I watched it as a screenplay writer. And when we watch movies, sometimes on this show, we sort of try to work around things that didn't really work for us. So that's what I was trying to do there.
Yeah. So Nicole's dad enlists a lawyer. He basically, I mean, I think you're right. He doesn't know what he's doing. You can't get a lawyer to get someone to stay away from your daughter when he hasn't actually broken any laws. Nicole gets home. She's pissed off at her dad. She's like, where the hell is he? And he's like, what did I do? And she's like, I can't believe you beat him up. So that's why David was punching himself in the chest, because he was like, oh, your dad's, beating me up. And his dad's like, what? What are you talking about? And she's like, I saw the bruises on his chest. So she storms out and she gets in the car with David, and the dad freaks out because David gives the dad a little smile, like, ha ha ha, I have your daughter, right? Like a fucking villain. And you're just like, oh, I can imagine, like, as a parent seeing that going, oh my God, my daughter is going off with a fucking psychopath. So Nicole and David go to the lake and they make out basically in his car, and she tells him she loves him. So that's it. She loves him. She's fucking locked in. He drops her off at her house. And he goes, do you want to come to my house? And she's like, no, I just want to go home. So it's all right. He drops her off. But she doesn't want to go in because she doesn't want to hear shit from her dad. So she gets in the car. She takes the car. She decides to drive to David's place. Thoughts before I get into it?
This is very stupid.
Which part?
But you know what? All of it. But with that being said, it works because she's 16 years old and she doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
All of it works, but it just makes, as the audience member, again, I talked about eliciting a response as a screenplay writer. This writer who wrote this movie has done that with me multiple times. Look, he may have done things and written certain things that I would have written differently, but he has been pretty good at eliciting responses from me. And as a screenplay writer, that's someone doing their job correctly. Whether I agree with it or not is another issue. But I think the screenplay writer is doing his job right, because we're like, no, what the fuck are you doing? And that's what you want to do as a writer. You want to elicit a response.
Yes, exactly. So Nicole arrives at David's house and she peers in the window, and there's a party going on. But she sees Margo in her underwear gyrating on her boyfriend who's smoking crack. And Nicole is basically like, oh no, Margo, like, what the fuck are you doing? David comes up, pulls Margo's hair back and says, tell me you want me. And Margo says no. And he pulls her hair even harder. And he says, tell me you want me. And Nicole's looking through the window going, what the fuck? And so Margo basically struggles and she says, I want you, like almost in tears. He pulls her off the boyfriend and she's standing there. He picks her up, throws her over his shoulder, slapping her ass. And her crack boyfriend says, take that dirty whore. And Nicole is basically stunned. She's in tears. She races back to the car crying. This whole scene is probably it's difficult. It's difficult because you've got a character that you kind of like, Margo, because she's a likable character. She's confident, but she's likable. She's never been a bitch. And you see her in that situation and you're like, girl, what are you doing? What are you doing there? And then when he says those words like take that dirty whore, like I just wanted to like vomit. Like
I wanted to
horrible.
No,
horrible.
I wanted to grab that motherfucker who said it and rearrange his face. Yeah, but listen, I do think that this scene was a little bit rough. But the reason why it's so effective is because, look, whatever you may think about Alyssa Milano, she's a good actress.
She's great. She's fantastic. And that's why it was so believable.
Sorry, no. Yeah. No, I need to amend that. Alyssa Milano is mint for that's not the word for fantastic, guys.
Mm.
That's the reason why it works.
Yes.
I do think that it was a little bit out of left field, because this movie has been raw to some extent, but it hasn't been that raw.
Mm.
So I think the screenplay writer needed something to make Nicole realize the era of her ways.
Agree.
And he chose to do the most despicable, disgusting thing that he could think of. He chose to do the most despicable, disgusting thing that he could think of. And that was the scene. And it just worked.
It did. I was highly uncomfortable, but it worked. It did what it was supposed to do. So next day, Nicole's at school when she's in the cafeteria, talking to Gary. When David surprises her and she freaks the fuck out. She starts yelling, "Get away from me, don't touch me." And he's like, "Wait, what? What's going?" Because he doesn't know what's going on. And her friend Gary jumps in and basically confronts David and says, she's said to leave you alone. This is not going to be good for Gary. but Gary did a good thing. And so David goes away. He's a bit angry. I have a problem with this scene because she didn't have to freak out when she could have pulled him to the side and told him, he doesn't know any of this. So he's like, why are you freaking out? The fact that she made a spectacle, she could have just said, oh, let's go and talk. You know what I mean? Like it was too dramatic for me. You know how the kicking scene was dramatic for you? This was too dramatic for me.
Yeah, look, there are certain things in this movie that don't have any build-up, they just happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this is another one of those scenes. But again, I could excuse it because of the age that Reese Witherspoon is supposed to be.
Mm.
But if I was writing this movie, I could have written these scenes the exact same way, but I would have built all this crap up and not have it just happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Because when you don't build scenes up, and for those of you who are not writers, I'm going to try to explain this. Building a scene up is basically planning little hints that something big is going to happen. That is building a scene up,
Mm-hmm.
and then having that big moment. That makes the moment play better for the audience. It makes the moment more believable. And there are several instances in this great movie where that doesn't happen, which is very odd to me because the writer has done such a good job in certain areas of the script, but has done a shit job in others. So I'm like, huh?
So Margo comes to Nicole's house asking why she won't take her calls. And Nicole tells her she knows. And Margo's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Nicole doesn't say it, but she's like, I know what happened. And then Margo goes, he forced me to, I didn't want to, which sounds right, but it's just like, you shouldn't have been there. Why are you fucking there? So Nicole slams the door on Margo's face and Margo screams, "You're my only friend." Which you feel bad for her because you know why Margo's like the way that Margo's the most interesting character of the whole movie. There should have been more of Margo because that's the deep, complex trauma that this movie it should be.
All throughout this movie, I was like, you know what? I could rewrite this. I could turn it into like a miniseries for like a limited TV series.
Oh my god, it totally should be.
And I could, and I kept thinking about ways that I could have fed out the character of Margo, because I'm like, I want to take Margo and give her shit.
Listen, out of all the reboots and remakes, this should be made into a series, 100%. So Margo gets in her car and she drives off and she's crying, and David follows her, and there's this like push and pull fucking car chase thing, and they pull over. She gets out, he slams her against the car. And she's crying and he says, "What did you fucking tell her?" And she says nothing, but she knows. And he puts her hands basically around her throat and he says, "You better make this right." And it just, you just feel so bad for Margo. You know why she didn't mean to do it. She's not a shit friend. She's fucked up. You just feel really bad for her. Thoughts?
I think an individual who hits a woman is a coward.
Mm.
and it just enrages me.
So David shows up at Nicole's house and her dad answers the door and David basically turns it fucking on. I'll explain everything. I think if I just explain to you what's happened, like he's very nice, he's very relaxed, he's very sincere. Please can we just let's just talk. And the dad says, you know what? I'm not interested. I know who you are. I'm not interested. Closes the door in his face. And David goes home and he tattoos Nicole forever on his chest, very psychotically. So that's that.
Yeah, that's a bit much. I didn't like that. I would have took it out. I'm like,
We
no.
needed to show how obsessive he was about her, though.
I think his behavior says everything you need to know.
It's true. It does. It does. So David follows Nicole's friend Gary from school. This is the guy that he beat up. This is the guy that said basically stay away from her. Basically, Gary's walking on a route home through like a forest. David confronts him and basically kills him, beats the shit out of him. We don't see it, but we know what he's done. Poor Gary. Gary was the only nice one. Poor Gary.
Yeah, I just felt really bad for Gary because he killed him.
I did too. Poor Gary. So Nicole's dad steps into the parking lot at work and his car is all smashed up and there's a note on the car that says, now I've popped both your cherries. And you're like, I get that's a really good line. So the screenwriter is kind of off and on this. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great line. Again, I think Dean put it best there. The screenplay writer is off and on this movie. It's such a wonderful line, and it's so disturbing also, but it's such a good line. It works.
So David is now stalking Nicole. Nicole's at the mall, and Nicole goes into the bathroom. He follows her into the restroom. As soon as she opens the stall to walk out, he's there. He pushes her up against the door. He puts his hand on her mouth because she goes to scream. And she's crying. And he says, everyone is just jealous. They want to be us. They want what we have. Don't worry. I love you. And then he leaves. And she's crying. He's just so disassociated. Like, she's crying. He doesn't care. He's just like, this is what I want. This is what I need. A psychopath. That's total psychopath.
I like the scene, but I also think that I'm so grateful that this movie is 96 minutes. I also think that that's a bit much. We already know that David is a psychopath. We already know that he's narcissistic. Like, you didn't need that. Like, at this point, I would have pushed to the third act already.
Yeah, you're right. We didn't need to show any more of that unless it was something different, something like another aspect of his psychotic behavior that we didn't know about. But we already know that he's kind of like that. But I'm forgetting, has he ever done that directly to Nicole before? Because everything else he's done to everybody else around her, I don't think he's ever done that to her.
No.
So now you know.
No.
So now you kind of know he'll hurt her if she doesn't do what he wants.
Yeah. That's the first time that he's treated Nicole in that manner. So if you look at it through that lens, it was necessary because I think at that moment Nicole sees his true face for the first time.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it was warranted.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was warranted.
Okay. So if you look at it like that, I just take it back.
Yeah. So Nicole's dad gets David's address from Margo and goes to his house and basically trashes the entire house, including David's room. David and his friends get home and are pissed, and David basically tells them, I know who did it. The dad is making so many mistakes here. And that pushes us into the final scene of the movie. So what do you think about that before we go to the final scene?
That was a rash decision.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, that was so rash. That's all I have to say. That was rash.
So Margo gets to Nicole's house, telling her that Gary is dead and he's been beaten to death, and they both kind of know who did it. David and his boy. I'm gonna simplify it because this is like a 20-minute scene, guys. Okay, David and his boys get there, and they cut the phone lines, they cut the electricity, and David knows the code for the front door, which was set up in the beginning. And they basically terrorize the family. until a security guard comes to the house. The dad comes out as they kill the guard, take the dad hostage. The little brother manages to get out of the house, get to the car that's in the garage, and dials 911 on the car phone. Because, folks, in the 90s, there was car phones. So he does that. And then there's a massive fight between David and the dad in the bedroom. Nicole ends up stabbing David in the back with like a spear thingy, and then the dad throws David out the window, and David dies, and that's the end of the movie. I'm simplifying it because it's 20 minutes, but that's basically the crux of the third act, kind of the film. Thoughts?
Yeah, it was a wonderful way to end this really suspense filled movie. Also, because I really think it was a great point of maturity for Nicole's dad to show that he really does care, and to show that maybe it's the first time in his life that he is stepping up and he is trying to be a real dad. And he actually does, he truly loves his daughter in the way that she may have wanted him to love her, but she wasn't able to communicate that to him in a sense. So his behavior has been not what he should have done, but I think that this act shows him choosing his family over his need to work and over his need to be a good father to Nicole and be a good father to his other kid as well.
Yeah. So, trivia?
Go ahead.
Leonardo DiCaprio was looked at for the role. He was offered it. But he didn't think he was right for the part, so he put in a good word for Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, I have various thoughts about Marky Mark, but I will say that Marky Mark did a great job in this movie because he was so good.
Well, it's funny because the director met up with Mark and spent the day with him. By the end of the day, he told Mark, "Yeah, you're not right for David," because Mark in real life is really sweet. Like, really, he's nothing like David. And so he said to him, "Yeah, I can't see you in the role of this psychotic, obsessive, like mental case. But I want you to come in and read for the role of one of the boys, one of the bullies." And Mark's like, "All right, I'll come in." And he said Mark came in, he read for one of the roles of the bullies. And as soon as he did, he went, "Oh my God, that's David." And so gave him the role.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that you say Mark Wahlberg is a great guy, because he is a great guy. He's also a devout Christian as well. So
Yeah.
he's like the salt of the earth people. So the fact that a guy like that, so talented, can do something like the character of David is just an indication of how talented and how blessed that guy is.
Yeah. Liv Tyler turned down the role of Nicole.
Oh, wow. I would have.
Interesting.
I mean, guys, I don't give a shit about actors, but I have a very small pool of actors who I care about. And Liv is one of them. Is one of the actors that I care about. Anything that she's in, I'll see, because it's Liv Tyler. It would have been very interesting to see Liv Tyler's take on this.
Yes, I think so. I think she would have done a great job. My last piece of trivia, if there's nothing else from you, which there clearly is.
But there is something else.
Yes.
But there's something about the way that Reese Witherspoon played the character. I mentioned it earlier. Reese Witherspoon has this down-home girl from Alabama thing about her, even when she's not speaking with a drawl. It's a thing that Reese Witherspoon can only bring. And I don't know if Liv could have done that in the same way.
Right. My last bit of trivia is Brian Grazer actually came up with the idea whilst on a skiing trip with his daughter. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean his daughter was dating a psychopath? I don't know what that means. But that's where he came up with the idea.
To move to your point, I don't know what that says about what was happening in his personal life that he came up with this story on a vacation.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. Anyway, if you like what we had to say, then you can subscribe to us. And if you want to email us, if you have a request or anything like that, you can email us at themixtapepod@aol.com. Next week is very special. Next week is our 100th episode. Next week, we have one of the most iconic, one of the most nostalgic, one of the most famous movies, possibly of all time. We have Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So we hope that you join in. Let me say that again. We hope that you join us. I'm so excited to say it. I can't even talk. We hope that you join us for that. And every week, I say it. I'm going to say it again. If someone is kind enough to make you a mixtape, that must mean that they really love you. The Mixtape Podcast is a Balloonhead Productions presentation.